So I got a request, could I do a video talking about the ways I think it may be possible to beat Wladamir Klitschko? I think there's three ways of beating Wladamir Klitschko. Three distinct, separate ways. I've actually talked about this before when I've done Klitschko previews. I remember basically doing Klitschko-Pulev previews and saying Pulev just doesn't have the game to beat Klitschko because you need to bring A, B and C to the table. So I want to talk about that. Now, let me start with a disclaimer. It's very, very difficult to beat Wladamir Klitschko. In talking about ways that I'd go about trying to get a fighter to beat him, it may sound like I'm oversimplifying it. I know it's very difficult. I know it is. But I'm going to give a few examples. I think option number one, and again, this is what I mean when I say oversimplifying it, is put simply, being bigger than Wladamir Klitschko. We've seen Klitschko fight some of the elite smaller heavyweights of the last 10 years. David Haye, Alexander Povetkin. And I think that's very, very interesting because David Haye and Povetkin fought completely different fights. David Haye stayed on the outside, tried to ambush his way in. Povetkin tried to get inside and have a war. But on both occasions, despite their varied tactics, Klitschko's size proved enough to win. You know, from the Haye fight, Klitschko was able to be athletic enough that even though David was trying to stay on the outside, Klitschko was dominant using his jab. In the Povetkin fight, he was able to completely shut down Povetkin on the inside using his size and weight to, to lean on him, to clinch him, to tie him up. And I think Klitschko's size is a huge problem. I think he uses his size so well. He uses his reach perfectly, landing the long jab and the long cross. On the inside, he doesn't have much of an inside game. So what I mean on the inside is in terms of leaning on opponents, clinching opponents, big manning opponents. He is a fighter who is very reliant on his size, in my opinion. His reach, his size, his weight. So I think it's interesting to see how he'd do against a fighter who's bigger than him. Now, the obvious example is Nikolai Valuev. They never fought. But I think Valuev, whilst he was bigger and heavier than Klitschko, was so limited skill-wise, I'd back Wladamir to do a job on him. The more interesting example is Tyson Fury. So I think Tyson Fury is a bigger, heavier man than Klitschko, bigger reach. But at the same time, he's got real interesting attributes. His jab, his athleticism, his movement, his inside game. So that's a fight I'd love to see. Because, as I say, Klitschko, for me, is a guy who relies on leaning on opponents on the inside. He relies on using his reins because of his huge frame. But against Tyson Fury, a guy with an excellent jab and excellent footwork, who can fight southpaw as well, Klitschko's going to have less reach. If it gets rough on the inside, Klitschko's going to be lighter. I think that's a fascinating encounter. And I think Klitschko is so reliant on using his size against opponents. I think one way to beat Klitschko, hypothetically, could quite simply be to be bigger than Klitschko. I give Tyson Fury an excellent chance. So that's option number one. I mean, let's just touch on that slightly further actually. A guy like Kubrat Pulev, in my opinion, and check my videos, I predicted this in advance, had no chance against Wladamir Klitschko. Because he's a guy who's reliant on his jab, on his reins, on his reach to get opponents out of there. But how can you be effective using those tactics when the guy you're in against is bigger, rangier, has got more reach? Yeah, if you rely on that and you're a smaller man, you've got no chance. And I think Tyson Fury brings that dynamic very, very differently to Kubrat Pulev. The second element could be try and break Wladamir Klitschko down on the inside with body punching. Picture, if you will, a sort of Mike Tyson style approach. Funnily enough, the fighter who I think could have caused Klitschko problems on his day was Derek Chisora. You know, I think now we've seen Derek get totally schooled by Tyson Fury recently. It's hard to give him a chance against Wladamir Klitschko, because you just think Klitschko would adopt the similar tactics Fury did. But I'd like to see a fighter come in low, bobbing and weaving Mike Tyson style, throwing powerful hook combinations to his body, testing that out. Now Klitschko's very good at defending this. Look at what he did to Povetkin. Totally destroyed Povetkin's game by leaning on him, clinching him, tying him up. So you've got to be a fighter who can duck in on the inside, duck under the jab, throw those hook combinations. But you've also got to be a fighter who won't allow himself to be tied up. In a way, like Gennady Golovkin did against Martin Murray. He didn't allow himself to be held and clinched. For me, Povetkin's tried and failed. Chisora, he's missed the boat. There isn't actually a fighter in the division right now I see destroying Wladimir Klitschko on the inside. What I would say is a guy like a peak Mike Tyson, who's got that vicious body punching, who's got that bobbing and weaving, ducking under shot style, I'll give him a good chance against Wladimir Klitschko. I think the final guy, and perhaps this is the most obvious way, is Klitschko's been stopped before. Recently I've seen him taking punches from Kubrat Pulev. I've seen him taking punches from David Haye. His chin isn't made of glass, It's not as simple as someone's going to rock up, hit Wladimir Klitschko, and it's going to be the end of the day. He's not got a bad chin at all. However, whilst I'm saying he's not got a bad chin, he's not got an elite, he's not got a great chin. He can be hurt. He can be dropped. We saw him dropped against Samuel Peter even more recently. If you're a truly massive puncher, you can hit Klitschko. Whilst Klitschko is a hard guy to hit, we saw David Haye land on him. We even saw Kubrat Pulev land on him more recently. So guys who are truly monstrous punchers, guys like Deontay Wilder, David Price, these guys have a chance. These guys have an outside chance, because it's not impossible to catch Klitschko. And when you have that game-changing power, with Klitschko's chin not being an all-time great chin, you can hurt him. This is why I gave Kubrat Pulev no chance. He had no inside game. He had, in my opinion, no real world-class punching power. And he was reliant on out-jabbing, out-Klitschkoing a bigger man with a better jab. Fighters like Tyson Fury, who can maybe take away the Klitschko jab by being larger, by being out of range, by being able to stay out of range of Klitschko's jab and maybe even hit him with your own. Fighters like the peak Mike Tyson, who will swarm him, not give him a second's peace, throw furious combinations to his body. You give them a chance. Guys with awesome power, Wilder, Price, you don't rule out. But for me, guys like Kubrat Pulev, who are guys who are purely reliant on the jab, yet are not bigger than Klitschko, or guys like Bryant Jennings, who don't bring much power, don't bring much of an inside game, it's going to rely on movement, athleticism. It's just not enough. Through razor beating Klitschko, be bigger than him and out jab him, destroy him to the body, or simply get lucky with a puncher's chance. Kubrat Pulev brought none of those elements to the game. Bryant Jennings brings none of those assets to the game. That's my thoughts. Let me know how you reckon you could beat, well, not you personally, but how you would instruct a fighter to go out and beat Wladimir, and which fighters you think stylistically have the best chance.